Welcome to week 3 of Abnormal Psychology. This is our final section of notes for Unit 1. We are going to talk about the etiology of anxiety orders first, looking at the biological factors, something that we may want to consider in regards to twins or other relatives that exhibit the same disorder. We should also consider conditioning and learning, and certain cognitive factors, such as perhaps certain styles of thinking may make some people particularly vulnerable to certain anxiety disorders. And also, many people believe that people suffer from anxiety disorders because they could misinterpret harmless situations as threatening. They focus excessive attention on perceived threats, or they selectively recall information that seems threatening. Another type of disorder are the somatoform disorders. I'm sure you've heard this phrase, quote, "it's all in the head," end quote. Aches, pains, physical ailments that maybe we get accused of them being, quote, in our head. I like to think of this as, if you hear that maybe perhaps your friend has the stomach flu and you sat next to them all week long, and then once you find that out, you start to believe that you have symptoms of the stomach flu, even though you really may not. But because you are aware that someone else has it, you start sort of looking for that you have it as well. These are psychosomatic diseases, and they are genuine physical ailments that are caused in part by psychological factors, especially emotional distress. A somatoform is a physical ailment that cannot be fully explained by organic conditions and are largely due to psychological factors. People are not deliberately faking ailments. They exist, but there really is no medical reason as to why. Types of somatoform disorders. First, some are marked by a history of diverse physical complaints that appear to be psychological in origin, and these occur mostly in women and could include minor physical ailments in a response to stress, a headache, and that is genuine, but there is no medical reason as to why you have a headache, but it is a typical response to stress. Conversion disorders is a significant loss of physical function with no apparent organic basis, and this is usually found perhaps in a single organ system. This could be a complete loss of vision, hearing, function of limbs, and these patients do have loss of vision, but there is no medical explanation for it, or perhaps they lose the ability to use their arm, and you really can't explain why, but these patients cannot use their arm. Another type is hypochondriasis, and this is sort of what I started talking about earlier, is that we look for signs of illness, and it is characterized by excessive preoccupation with one's health and incessant worry about developing physical illnesses. Often this appears along the side with other psychological disorders, especially anxiety or depression. Okay, so if I'm running a lot and my foot starts to hurt, I may look for additional signs of something bigger and worse that could be going on with my foot. And I make up this situation in my head like, oh my goodness, my foot hurts. I'm never going to be able to use it again. It's going to fall off when I'm running. And I get so worked up and so worried about it that I often think the worst. The etiology of somatoform disorders. There are cognitive factors, and recent evidence suggests that people with somatoform disorders tend to draw catastrophic conclusions about minor bodily complaints. So my foot hurts, and the catastrophic conclusion of that would be perhaps it falls off. which is sad, but maybe that would be catastrophic to somebody who runs all the time. So I can more or less create this situation in my mind. Personality factors, insecure attachment styles, okay, being attached to people unnecessarily so. The sick role, people grow fond of the role associated with being sick because there are benefits of being sick. And let's think about it. If we take a day off of school, there are some things that we find great joy in doing. Watching TV, being taken care of, having our mom or dad bring us soup in bed. We enjoy the benefits of that sick role. When I was little, I used to fake sick, and because my mom worked and I got to go stay with my grandma, and that was super fun because she let me roller skate in her basement even though I was supposed to be, quote, sick. So my sick role came with some awesome benefits. Based upon previous slides, let's check for understanding. This is the type of question that you would see on a quiz. Nathan owns a small restaurant that's in deep financial trouble. He dreads the possibility that his restaurant will fail. One day, he suddenly loses all feeling in his right arm and the ability to control the arm. He's hospitalized for his condition, but the physicians can't find anything organic that caused for his arm to have this trouble. Preliminary diagnosis? I'm thinking conversion. And if you don't see that, you may want to go back and review the definitions. So I think that, again, Nathan suffers from conversion. Moving on to dissociative disorders. This is a class of disorders in which people lose contact with portions of their conscious or memory, which results in disruptions in their sense of identity. So like an identity crisis. There are 3 types: dissociative amnesia, dissociative fugue, dissociative identity disorder. Say those 3 things really fast and see if you can do as good as I just did. Dissociative amnesia is a sudden loss of memory for important personal information that is too extensive to be due to normal forgetting. Like, I always forget where my car keys are. I always forget where I place them, but that is normal forgetting, okay? This may also occur after a single traumatic event, such as an auto accident or a home fire. So that would be dissociative amnesia. Dissociative identity disorder involves the coexistence in one person of 2 or more largely complete and usually very different personalities. Think multiple personality disorders. So you have a extremely happy personality, a very gloomy, sad personality, and then just an overall kind of confused personality. And these personalities exist within one person, and that is multiple personality disorder. Dissociative fugue. People lose their memory for their entire lives along with their sense of personal identity. For example, they forget their name, they forget their family, they forget where they work, where they live, but they remember matters that are totally unrelated to their identity, such as how to drive a car. They know how to drive a car, and they know how to do math, not H-O to do math, but they know how to do math, like the derivatives and quadratic equations and proofs. That's about all I can think of at the moment. They know how to do that. Those things are complex, but they forget who they are. The etiology of these disorders can usually be attributed to excessive stress, and sometimes the causes are obscure, meaning we don't know what causes them. They can also be caused by severe emotional trauma during our childhood. Mood disorders. What did Abraham Lincoln, Marilyn Monroe, Kurt Cobain, Vincent van Gogh, Ernest Hemingway, Winston Churchill, and Janis Joplin all have in common? What do you think? Mood disorders are a class of disorders that are marked by emotional disturbances of varied kinds that may spill over to disrupt physical, perceptual, social, and our thought processes. There are two basic types, one being bipolar and the other unipolar. People who suffer from major depressive disorders show persistent feelings of sadness and despair and a loss of interest in previous sources of pleasure. So something we could look at is running brings me pleasure. Well, sometimes. And if I were to suffer a major depressive disorder, I would lose all interest in this activity. Okay, so people who suffer from this give up the activities that they used to find enjoyable. We move more sluggish, not just because it's a Monday or a Tuesday after a 3-day holiday. And people who suffer from this disorder may also show signs of decreased self-esteem. People who suffer from bipolar disorder experience both a depressed period and a manic period. People have moods that become elevated to the point of euphoria. A very high self-esteem. They make extravagant and unrealistic plans, like I'm going to read 300 books that are 400 pages long in 2 days. That would be extravagant and unrealistic. Psychologists say that heredity can create a predisposition to mood disorders. There is also a neurochemical etiology that we have abnormal levels of two neurotransmitters in our brain, norepinephrine and serotonin. And these could both be the cause of a mood disorder. And then also a cognitive factor, which is sometimes viewed as, quote, a learned helplessness. The next couple slides will have a brief overview about schizophrenic disorders. Again, later in the semester, we will take a closer look at schizophrenia. But right now, I want you to know that these are disorders that are marked by delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, and the overall deterioration of adaptive behavior. Schizophrenia is typically early onset and many times requires lengthy hospital stays. General symptoms of schizophrenia: delusions and irrational thought. These are false beliefs that are maintained even though they clearly are out of touch with reality. Deterioration of adaptive behavior. Deterioration in the quality of the person's routine functioning in work, social relations, and personal care. Distorted perception or hallucinations. Disturbed emotion. Sometimes people who suffer from schizophrenia show very little emotion, if any at all. There are 4 subtypes of schizophrenia. Paranoid. These are delusions of persecution along with delusions. An example, they have enemies who want to harass and oppress them. People who suffer from paranoid schizophrenia are very suspicious of their friends and relatives. Catatonic, striking motor differences ranging from muscular rigidity, so very rigid in movement, and also random motor activity. Disorganized schizophrenics, this is a severe deterioration of adaptive behavior, perhaps aimless babbling, inappropriate giggling or laughing. And the 4th type is undifferentiated. Clearly, this person is schizophrenic, but they cannot be placed in any of the previous 3 categories. They may have a hint of each one from time to time. And that concludes section 3 of our unit 1, abnormal psychology notes. Like I mentioned in the earlier folder directions, I'm going to post a quiz on Friday and you will have the weekend to take it. The quiz will be online, and there will be directions on how to submit your answers to me. But after we get through Unit 1, then we're going to start Unit 2 next week. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Email me, stop by and see me. That would be great. Other than that, have a fantastic short 3-day week at school, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.